Hey Spurs fans, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. Me, Kieran, talking all things Tottenham Hotspur. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, support this video with a like if you enjoy it, and turn on the bell notifications so you get notified when the next video goes live. So let's jump right into it. Today we're talking about the Tottenham Dinamo Zagreb Europa League tie. We are away today. Kickoff is 5:55. That's UK time. So if you are listening from elsewhere, please check your local time for the kickoff for that game. So as I said, it's the second leg. We are 2-0 up on aggregate from our home tie. Obviously, we're coming off the back of that disappointing London derby, 2-1 to Arsenal. And we're really hoping that we can, pick ourselves back up, dust ourselves off, and put ourselves through to the next round. Obviously, Arsenal were 3-1 up in their tie as well. Let's hope that they lose tonight. That'll make us feel a little bit better. Okay, so we'll jump right into it. It's not going to be a long video. We're just going to talk through the press conferences. So we had Jose Mourinho and Lucas Moura for us. So we'll talk through what they said and then a little bit about what we expect going into tonight's game. So Jose was asked about team news. It was Hojberg is obviously suspended because he picked up a yellow card in the first leg. Rodon is obviously not in the Europa League squad. Son is injured, as we saw against Arsenal. He pulled up early. Jose said he didn't know how long he's going to be out injured for. And then on the flip side, I've heard rumours that he could be available for the game against Aston Villa. So, he does tend to heal quite quickly from injuries, but he certainly won't be available for tonight's game. What else? He said that he doesn't think the 2-0 lead is such a good lead. The game is still open. It's definitely not over, and we need to approach it, and take it seriously. He said that he will not be happy if we qualify to the next round losing this game. And I should imagine he wouldn't be too happy about a draw either. The guy wants a win and definitely doesn't want to go out there and just defend our lead. Well, when I spoke about that team news, that clearly means that Gio Lo Celso is finally back. Obviously, he had his injury, then he got over it, was back in training, and then felt some back pain, an accumulation of trying to get himself back fit, probably putting himself under too much strain and pressure. But yes, Gio is back. And Jose said he doesn't have 90 minutes in his legs, but we wouldn't expect that anyway. Most of our players, when they come back from injury, Mourinho doesn't tend to play them for a whole game, or he just brings them off the bench and tries to bed them in that way. So don't expect him to play a full game if he does start, and if he doesn't start, expect him to come off the bench to pick up some minutes. He said that he has good competitive qualities. He looked comfortable in the last 3 training sessions he's been involved in, and he's somebody that the team needs. Interestingly, he did say that Gio being back will help some of the players, and he also said it will scare others. And I think when he says it will scare others, we're talking about players like Dele Alli, who's just come back into the squad. So it will scare him. Hopefully that will take him onto another gear. But then obviously Lucas Moura has been playing in the centre recently. Eric Lamela has been playing well. So we've now got an extra player in the mix for those positions, which can only be a good thing for us. And hopefully it brings everybody up to another level in those attacking positions. What else? Okay, he was asked about Harry Kane and the other players that will be going off on international duty, and how he feels about that. Players racking up a lot of minutes over that time. He basically said that he wants them all to go, which I think deep down he doesn't from a Tottenham perspective, but from a professional standpoint, he certainly wants them to go. He wants these guys to be playing for their countries. It's for the national pride and whatnot. Although he did say that he doesn't really want any of them to play all 3 of the games. But at the same time, we don't really want our players going over there or wherever they're going and not playing many minutes at all, because it's a waste of time and a bit demoralising for them. So I think with most players, he'd hope that they play at least 1.5 to 2 of the 3 games that they're going away for, and he just reiterated that because today's game is important, you will see Harry Kane play. So that's an intent that he's going to go with a strong lineup and try and get the job done as quick as possible. Then we'll probably start to see the changes on the pitch. Okay, he also spoke about Son. Obviously, Sonny has picked up an injury, and South Korea have decided to arrange themselves a friendly. It's absolutely ridiculous in a pandemic just to go and arrange yourself an international friendly just because there are internationals going on around. I think the friendlies at this point are completely pointless, and it's stupid for any team to arrange a friendly. But however, South Korea have got one. He said, Son's obviously injured, and if he is actually injured for the international friendly, Tottenham will try and prove to the South Korean FA that that is the case. If he's not injured and they call him up, then he has to go, whether it is a friendly or a competitive game. Jose will not stand in the way whatsoever. So he's asked about Lucas Moura and the fact that, he's been really important for us recently and how he's been playing. And, he said he's never worried about Lucas Moura and how he approaches matches. There are no question marks over his basic football fundamentals. He takes his job very seriously, whether he starts or is on the bench or not involved at all. He has a professional outlook. He's a professional from head to toe, which Jose actually struggled with. He couldn't quite remember what the term was, but yes, Jose, head to toe, he is a professional, and he totally respects his proper professional behaviour. He was then asked another question about, England and Harry Kane, and he said, look, he can't give Gareth Southgate advice. The same as Gareth Southgate doesn't come up to Jose and say, look, I think you're playing these players way too much and they need a rest. He's not going to say that about his own players when he goes on international duty. Certainly not during the season. He said if in the summer with the Euros he does some punditry work or radio work or whatever, then he may feel like he can comment a bit more freely. But he said, Harry and Gareth will have their own professional relationship and they should discuss it between them, how they're feeling, how Harry's feeling in his body, whether he should continue to play all these minutes, whether England actually need him in those particular games. So it's something for manager and player to work out amongst them, and it's not Jose's place to get involved, which is respectful. He was asked by a Croatian reporter about the Mamic situation and just a little bit about Dinamo Zagreb. Asked if it was going to, change things for him. Out of respect, he obviously didn't want to comment on it because why would he? There's lots that we don't know. We can only read what is reported in the paper. We don't know whether things are definitely true or not. But by the looks of it, Mamic has resigned. He's going to face nearly 5 years prison time for his involvement in things like fraud, and it's all to do with money. And if it's something that you want to look into, feel free to go on Google, just type in his name, Mamic, and it will come up with all the information you need. It's not something I'm going to go into. I've had a little read, but it's not really important for us. It's his own thing and Dinamo Zagreb's problem. But yes, he said that he doesn't expect too much of a change. Obviously, it's going to affect them because they've just lost their manager to a complete and utter scandal. But it's the same set of players, the same coaches behind them, the same philosophy, and he doesn't see that in a 2-day period too much would have changed, and I don't see why it would. I don't think the assistant coaches and whatnot are going to try and change too much before this game. It's a lot to ask, so expect very much the way they played in the first leg. You may see some personnel changes depending on who the coaches actually prefer, but I would say it'll pretty much be the same players out there, the same sort of shape and philosophy. And really, they need to go for it. So I think we'll probably see them open up a bit more. They'll feel more comfortable because they're at home. But yeah, they'll certainly open themselves up a bit more because they'll have to score goals. They have to attack, which means on the counter-attack, which is probably our strongest attribute as a team, we can hit them on the break and hopefully get this game put to bed early and get some of those players off the pitch and rested, ready for the weekend. Of course, even though it is a press conference about the Europa League tie, he was obviously asked about the Arsenal game to sort of the reporter tried to link it to the game by saying, after that sort of disappointing defeat, have we analysed and are we going to, implement any changes and whatnot going forward? But, he didn't want to discuss the result in terms of an analysis. He said that's something that they will go through with the players. I mean, they probably haven't had too much time to go over loads since the Arsenal game because, for us, the games are coming thick and fast. So they have to sit there, they have to review all the footage, pick out key moments, things we did wrong as a team, loads of examples, and sit down and run them through, with the analysts that we have employed. Jose will have talks with the players about what he genuinely thought about it. It's a long, lengthy process. So I have a feeling that that's not all done and dusted behind the scenes. They probably haven't been through everything because, they have to focus and get ready for this Europa League tie, which for us is very important. We need to progress now because in the Premier League, it's just not happening on a too much of a consistent basis, which is very frustrating for us. But, he was honest like he was at the end of the game. We didn't play well at all. And he said that was him being very honest. He said second half, we sort of picked up before what he called the bad referee decision. Then he went on to say, I make it clear that Michael Oliver is a very good referee and he has no problems with him, even though he seems to be very unlucky with penalties when Michael Oliver is in charge of his games. But yeah, he said that he's one of the best refs in the Premier League, one of the best refs in Europe, and he has no bad feelings about him, even though the decision decided the game. But, it is what it is. But he said at the time, 24 hours before the next game, he doesn't want to go into it. And it's quite right, really. You don't want the press conference to be taken over by what we did and didn't do against Arsenal, because chances are the players are going to see all this stuff. It flashes up on social media. You don't want to be bad-mouthing what we did and didn't do just before we go into a crucial tie that could take us through to the quarterfinals of the Europa League. So very sensible, and he said they will analyse it behind closed doors. And then they finished off with another question about Jose and the Euros that kind of linked to the one earlier. Somebody said, are you actually going to do punditry and stuff? And he basically said, look, come the end of the season, that's his time for a holiday, for a break. So if it's not a red zone, he said he will be travelling back to Portugal. But he said he's more than happy to do maybe something over the radio or maybe a podcast or something like that, or written. But he said, he can't see himself really being over there because he would have to be, in the camps over there with the pundits, and it would require him to travel there. So he can't have the holiday that he actually wants. And then obviously after the group stages, that's really when he's going to be getting back into pre-season. Any of those players that we've got that aren't involved in the Euros, they're going to want to get back early and start building their fitness up to get ahead of the other players before they're back. A chance to impress the manager, to put themselves out there and see if they can, become a regular for us or just put themselves in the first team squad. Good opportunity for a lot of the youngsters. But that was really where Jose's press conference was left. So if we move on to Lucas Moura, it's always nice to have a player like Lucas interviewed. Obviously he's playing well at the moment. He's a very happy guy, very popular guy within the squad. And I like players like this to actually get interviewed. It's interesting to see what they have to say about more, should we say, negative matters. But he was asked about the game at Arsenal. He said, we were too slow. There was no intensity. We were too passive. We've been playing well recently, but the difference between us and them was the desire, and this cannot happen. We need to focus on the next game. He was asked about his own individual performances. He says he was happy with his individual performances, the way he's been playing, but very quickly moved on to the fact that, his individual performances aren't as important as the team performances and the victories we get. He said position-wise, he's very comfortable in the middle because he can go right to left, left to right. He can even slip into a number 9 role, and the manager's confident to play him in that position and give him the freedom to really do what he wants to do. Like we've heard in pretty much every press conference so far with Jose and every different player we've put forward for one, they were asked about, is the Europa League our best route to Champions League football? And shock horror, we got pretty much the same answer as we always do. If we win it, we will get into Europe. So yes, it is a good avenue. He said it's a hard question to answer because we still actually have to win the competition, which is going to be very hard. Arsenal are still in it, Manchester United are still in it, amongst some very good European teams. This is really the last of I wouldn't say this is an easy game we've had to play, but this is the last stage where we're kind of going to get a little bit of a softer game from the quarterfinals up. It's anyone's game, really, anyone's trophy. So, we still have to fight to win it. But he did say that he still feels that we can finish in the top four. And if you actually look at it realistically, although we felt like we put a dent in our armour when we played Arsenal, we're not, because other teams dropped points around us. Chelsea only gained a point. So if we win our game in hand, we're 3 points behind them. So all that takes is one loss and us to win another game, and we're completely back in the race. So we are relying on other teams around us to drop points. But Lucas still thinks we can do it. I'm pretty sure the majority of the team still think we can do it. And that's the attitude they need going into these last games of the season. He was asked about Eric Lamela, about the goal, which is obviously tainted by the sending off. And he said, that the journalist asked if it was a surprise, the goal. And Mora's response was, it was a surprise for everyone but us. And by us, he means the Tottenham players. He says, he does it in training every week. He's done it before in the Europa League. The one from outside the box that went into the top corner. Fantastic goal. He said that was all he could do from that position. And when you actually look back at the replays, there's not much he could have done because he had to quickly move his feet and didn't have a lot of room to move, so it was very well improvised. He said the goal would have been more special, obviously, if we'd have won, because we know that game is going to get played before every single London derby till the end of time now. But yeah, it would have been better if we'd have won the game. He said he is an amazing player and an amazing teammate and a pleasure to play with. Then he was asked about, and I was hoping this question would come up, the Welsh Mafia. So when Gareth Bale had an interview at the end of the game, he was saying that, Lucas isn't part of the Welsh Mafia, but he's got his own thing, which is just called Lucas, and found that very funny. And we've seen Lucas try and sort of jump his way in there in the celebrations for the Welsh Mafia. And we heard from Joe Rodon and Gareth Bale in a little skit that they did on the Tottenham YouTube channel, our official one, that Sonny is an original member of the Welsh Mafia. And that all stemmed from the French guys, which I couldn't remember couldn't remember the name of last time, which is La Mafia, which literally means the Mafia. So the Welsh guys set up their own one. Sonny is an original member, apparently. And Lucas's response was, he's Brazilian and it's very hard to do a B with your hands. Which I'll give him that, it is. So to me, that sounds like that's the only reason he wanted to join the Welsh Mafia. Because a B is hard to do with his hands. Although we have seen him doing the L for Lucas, which has nothing to do with the Welsh Mafia. But he seems to think he is in the Welsh Mafia. He said it's good to be part of that group. But when you ask Gareth Bale and Joe Rodon, they have other ideas on that. So whether he's in it now or not, who knows? We'll have to have another conversation with Gareth and Joe to see if he really is in it, or he's just being deluded and really wants to be in there. He's just imagined his own acceptance into the group. But it brought a bit of fun to the press conference, and it's been brought up a few times now in different interviews with different players. So as I said in the last video, it feels like there's a good family vibe at the club right now, and it's nice to see. And then he was obviously asked about the match itself, and he said, we have to prepare for this game the same as we do every game. We need to take it seriously. We have to be strong mentally and qualify, and we need to be tough. And what happened with them cannot affect us, and we've got to do our job. And it's true, I don't see the situation with Zagreb affecting the Tottenham players at all. It's nothing to do with it's just all in the press. It doesn't affect our players whatsoever. If anything, it's going to affect Zagreb, and that can go one of two ways. They could absolutely come out flying because they're sick of all the press being about the manager rather than themselves as a team, or they will completely capitulate. But on home soil, being 2-0 down, I don't think that'll happen. I think they'll give us a good game. So that summed up the press conferences. So if we just talk about predicted lineups, by the sound of it, Jose is going to go as strong as he can. So we know we've got no Hojberg. I think that we will probably see Hugo continue in goal if he's going to take it as seriously as he said. Although with a 2-0 lead, I wouldn't be too disheartened if we had Joe Hart in between the sticks. And then fullbacks, I think we'll probably see Davies come back in and give Reguilon a rest. Dyer and Sanchez will probably play next to each other. And I think Aurier will play on the right after Doherty getting the nod against Arsenal. And then, so Tanguy will probably have to play because we have no Hojberg. I wouldn't be surprised if we then saw Winks next to him. And then in front of them, Sonny's obviously not going to play, which could mean he puts Lucas back out on the left like he did against Arsenal. But I would probably think he might use Bergwijn, put him out there out on the left. He needs minutes and he's definitely a strong enough player to play in this game. Which then means Dele may get the nod again in the centre, or it could be Lamela from the start because he's obviously got that suspension to face now in the Premier League. It probably makes sense to actually play him in this game because Dele will now be used in the Premier League squad, whether it be on the bench or not, for the next game. Right hand side, will he go with Gareth Bale again? I mean, he was pulled off quite early in the Derby game, and rightly so. But yeah, he may go with him, he may go with somebody else. Sissoko may come back into the squad and that may change. And then up top, he's pretty much said Harry's going to play, which means Vinicius has to have another game sitting on the bench. But I would expect, if we do take control, there will be a lot of changes throughout the game because we do get more subs in these games. So expect to see Vinicius, expect to see some decent rotation. And I do wonder if he's going to put some youngsters in the squad because in the last Europa League game, there were no youngsters. And he's had youngsters the whole way through up until that point. But he might put a few of them on the bench there just to get them some minutes if we do take control. But I would like to see some of our actual first team players that sit on the bench get some more minutes if we can get that in there. So fingers crossed it'll be another victory and we can have a happy video tomorrow talking about the fact that we're in the quarterfinals. And also we'll have a look at the other scores from the competition and we'll talk about who has gone through, who we could possibly face. Fingers crossed we can get another kind draw and push ourselves on to the next phase of that and have the easiest run to the final we can, which hopefully then reflects into the Premier League with us picking up our performances. And if you actually look at the Premier League, I know we've got a few away games on the bounce now, but once we've got those out the way, I mean, really, you look at the run-in, and I think we've got one of the kinder run-ins of the teams sort of battling for the top 4, top 6. So hopefully we can hit another nice bit of form, get the Arsenal fixture out of our heads, and have a real good push for the rest of the season. So yeah, fingers crossed for tonight. I do think we'll get another victory. I don't think it will be a big victory because they're at home and they've got to push. So I think it may be another 2-0. Yeah, 2-0 to us, 4-0 on aggregate, sail through. But fingers crossed, all things go well, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Stay safe, and as always, come on you Spurs. Hey guys, thanks for sticking around for that video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to support it with a like. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It really does help. And turn on the bell notifications so you get notified when the next video goes live. I will talk to you tomorrow. Take care. Come on you Spurs.